Greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to another Wednesday evening of the Sports Crib. Boy, there's going to be some surprise faces here a little later on this evening. I have kept a surprise under wraps here, and it's going to be surprising to see some faces. But we also have some faces that he's not used to. So let's kind of get everyone together here. What's up, Dave? How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
And Reggie, how are you doing?
Always great, my friend. Glad to be on.
And glad to see you, the return of
Mr. There he is.
Hey, guys, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right.
Yes,
Hey, it's good to be back. David, nice to meet you. I don't think we've ever met.
No, nice to meet you, Demetrius.
I was out for a while, and Mr. King held my spot down. Reggie been holding it down. Still jealous of that poster in the background, but we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that later.
Demetrius has been gone for a while. Dave is my resident Steeler expert.
All right. For the Steelers? Oh my God! This should be fun. This should be fun.
Well, I was. Usually your friend Mr. Scott sneaks in.
He's been ducking me for a year. Mr. Scott don't want this smoke. He didn't want none of this. Tigers are ahead of the Twins in the standings. He don't want none of this. Mess around and talk baseball on this show. He doesn't want that.
Yeah, we dabbled in it just for a minute, but Dave doesn't talk a lot of baseball, but he's there. He's I guess what, Pirates, Penguins, whatever it takes, right, Dave?
Right. Well, the one time I don't really talk NBA at all, and then
actually, there's no professional team in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. My wife gave some input though.
There we go.
So whenever we get to it, I will share her text.
See, we're already good. This man is giving his wife shout outs 2 minutes into the pod. I like this guy.
And of course, I made sure I kept it kind of a secret from Bill, but I'm sure he'll be jumping in here sooner or later. So, Don should be dropping by after he thinks that we're finished talking about NBA. So
we're talking Cowboys. All of a sudden, Don Ages.
So let's talk a little about game number 7. Now, Demetrius knows that I've given my diatribe about Jason Tatum and whether I want to have him in a foxhole. I'd rather send him to somebody else's, but but anyway, so things kind of went as I expected. But I did admit I expected the Celtics to fold much sooner. And they can talk about this young coach that they have, but I believe the same results with Anduko. Regardless of what he was doing back in the locker room, the results were the same. So, Reggie, what's your thoughts on Game 7? I mean, see, once again, like they say, okay, well, on, the first play of the game, he turned his ankle. Does anybody recall the flu game of Michael Jordan?
Can't Vince mark Michael Jordan's flu game?
No, I mean, I'm just talking about making excuses.
I don't know if that's like exactly apples to apples there. You know what I mean? Like, because I feel like it's easier to play with a cold than it is to play with like a twisted ankle when you're playing basketball. And, and another things too, James, is
wait a minute now. If that's the case, wasn't there a guy named Vincent from the Heat that played the game before with an ankle. I mean, he had enough tape, to share some with me.
I do feel like there's something to Gabe, but I would never put Gabe Vincent and Jason Tatum in the same sentence. Like as far as like which team's dependency and who you're dependent on to show up that night. That being said, though, James, because I have a little bit of both of this. Like, so I do believe that that's a factor because it is a factor. An ankle is something that you're going to need a healthy ankle to play with on a game 7 at the highest level in the world of basketball that you're playing at. So I'm not saying that that's not an excuse because it is one. But the bigger problem to me is that the Heat just looked better than them the entire series. It wasn't just this game. The Heat have looked better than them consistently this entire series. And to be honest with you, they tried their hardest to screw it up game 6. They just got lucky with a Derek White. But believe me, they almost screwed that up then. So end of the day, I think you got to give it to the Heat only because it's been consistent. If you look at the amount of quarters, the Heat have won more quarters than Boston has won this entire series. So it's hard to say, even with the ankle situation being there, and I do believe it counts because injuries do count. When a player gets injured on the first play of the game, it's deflating. I was watching his face. He was grimacing when he was coming down. Clearly, there was something that was bothering him. He couldn't get back. But at the end of the day, if you hadn't put yourself in this position by, sleepwalking those other games, then you probably wouldn't be in the position that you're in right now. And you really just got to give a shout out to Miami for winning it because they just played better basketball consistently this entire series, in my opinion.
No, but was it the series before where Jimmy Buckets got hurt and had to go be the decoy over in the corner? And what game was that? Was that the series before?
It's a previous series. But again, you're talking Jimmy Buckets, though. That's a different kind of dude. Jimmy Butler is wired differently. I'm sorry. I think Reggie nailed it. I'm going to reiterate. I hate doing that. That's why I need to go first. I need to go before Reggie. On 80% of the topics, I want to go before Reggie. And I feel like Dan's going to jack me up, too, when we get to football. So I want to go first all night. Now that I'm coming to I'm joking. I'm joking, fellas. I'm joking. But no, he hit it. Two things here. Simply put, the word team, T-E-A-M in capital letters, Miami was a better team, right? Even if you talk about talent, I still contend Buckets was the most talented guy on the floor the whole series, like Reggie said. They were lucky to get to Game 7. They were lucky. Miami was a better team. Now, we can have a conversation about talent, overall talent. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You know me, I'm always looking for any reason to bring up a Detroit team, right? So go back to 2004 when the Lakers brought Karl Malone and Gary Payton and Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. And are we after dark already? Screw it. We bust that ass in 5 games because we had a better team, right? And to a man, I don't know that any player on our team, I would say Chauncey probably, it was better than any of those guys, but we were a better team. And I think that's what we're seeing. Miami is the better team. Boston has talented players. And I think ankle is a reason. There's a fine line between reason and excuse, right? Mm-hmm. Your best player hurting his ankle on the first play of the game is not an excuse. That's a reason. Brogdon's injury is a reason. Yes. It's been a reason. Underneath, Brogdon's impact on this team has been missed, right? But the reality was Buckets and the Heat are a better team. They were team. Right, a group of players and team might not be the same thing, but you saw it. Miami was a better team really throughout the series, with the exception of a couple quarters. To Reggie's point, so I mean, that's what happened with the 04 Pistons. That's all I'd say. Gratuitous reason to mention the 04 Pistons. That's what I would say.
Have we got to your part yet, Dave?
Well, Sue had given an opinion on what you were asking the question whether there would be a sweep, I guess, in the final.
Yeah, that's coming up. Yeah, that's coming up, right?
So that's where she rendered an opinion. So I'll wait until that.
Oh no, please don't wait. Let's go right to that.
Because I want to go right to it.
Because I'm struggling with it. I'm going to be honest. All so right, I want to hear you guys can have this.
Was NBA Finals to sweep or not to sweep?
Right.
According to my wife Sue, she says no sweep. Butler will keep the Heat relevant. Like the NHL playoffs, sometimes a hot streak stays hot, especially if you're from Florida, it seems. Then she adds, as an aside,
Sue got jokes.
Why aren't you talking about the NHL? there will be a totally new Stanley Cup winner. Plus, if Miami wins and the Panthers win, it will be the first time an NBA and an NHL team win for the same market in the same year. Now, I didn't fact check that. That was just
That's true.
She saw my thing, and then she sent me a little redlined note. So that was from Sue, who's a bigger sports fan than I am. Actually.
Sue's bringing smoke. Sue ain't joking around.
But she forgot what the City of Champions. What year was that?
That was football and
football and
right?
baseball, not
She's
football and hockey.
Mario was there then too. I thought it was hockey.
They didn't win it. No, the Red Wings and Pistons almost did it in 2004. But Sue's right. It's never been done. Yeah, with those two sports, it's never been done. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Sue brought smoke right off the top. She ain't joking. Why are you even here? Where's Sue?
Exactly.
Is Sue available, David?
All right, exactly. you can add another mic. She can do it from another laptop in another room. Yeah. No, good stuff by Sue, though. That's awesome.
Okay. Now, again, you're number 2.
All right. Yeah. So,
now you got to go after Sue.
Right. Again, I got to follow Sue, right? So, she's right about Jimmy Butler, right? So I just got to say right up front, so you guys know, I got a different kind of love for Jimmy Butler. It's kind of unnatural. I'm a little worried. He's never played for the Pistons, didn't play for Michigan State, and I generally don't like players that don't play for one of those two teams, right? I love Jimmy Butler. He's just a different kind of dude, and I don't see a sweep. Jimmy Butler will win one of these games, and it's not even just Jimmy Butler, because I'm then really contradicting what I said earlier about them being the consummate team. It's really their team, and everybody's going to count them out, and they're going to take that chip, they're going to put it right here, and they're going to show up and probably steal one of the first two, and then everybody's going to freak out. It's like, no, they're a really good team. I don't care that they were 7 or play in 8 or whatever, how it worked out. I think they lost and had to double play in or something.
Atlanta. As a matter
right,
of fact.
Reggie, quickly, lost to Atlanta. but I think they're just a really good team, and to Sue's point, they're hot. They're like a hot goalie, and I can tell you stories of hot goalies because I grew up in Michigan and Detroit. I'm a hockey fan, right? I could talk them. We don't really do hockey on this show, so one day when we open it up, I'll be ready. But a hot goalie can carry you to the cup, just like a dude who just decides I'm not giving up goals for the next month. And then you got San Jose Sharks did it. Toronto did it to us back in the day. Same thing. Jimmy Buckets is that goalie and it's almost like a mental thing. It's not. He's talented as hell. He's carrying this team, and they're playing really good basketball. So Sue nailed it. Don't ever count a hot team out and think they're going to get swept. That would be shocking to me. As good as Denver is, and if we're picking, and we might later, I'll wait. They're not getting swept. They're not getting swept. They're not getting swept, are they, Reggie?
No, I can. I mean, because of Jimmy Butler, because I do have an appreciation for Jimmy Butler and the way that he approaches and plays the game. He doesn't cheat it. He never has, despite being somewhat of a journeyman. He's never cheated in any place he's gone to. Exactly. So sweet. Well, I can see 1 or 2 games, but I just don't see W. Like I can see 1 or 2 games, and when we talk about the chip, Demetrius, that the Heat can have on their shoulder, Denver can have it on their shoulder about the entire season. People been counting them out for 82 games. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like people didn't respect the fact they were the number 1 seed. Like we would see the number 1, we're like, yeah, that's cute. But it's gonna be when you get to one of these real guys, like the LeBrons of the world, when you get to one of these real teams, they're gonna really show you what it is. Yeah. They only went on to sweep these teams and then beat every single one of them convincingly. Yeah. They've never looked bad the entire series. If I was to count against Denver now, I've counted against them every round. I got to go ahead and step out there and say I've done that. I've been that guy who's counted against Denver every single round, despite me really liking their 2 players. I have a lot of love for Jokic and Jamal Murray. I have a lot of love for those 2 players. So despite me having love for those players, I've counted Denver out every step of the way because I need to see it first. I got to see you do it. But at the same time, I do think that the Heat maybe can get 1 or 2 games, in here. They can get 1 or 2. But Denver, one of the things that's different about them than some of the other teams, and Denver's had this, is that they've been, for 1, consistently great. For 2, their players show up. In the Aaron Gordons of the world, the Bruce Browns of the world, the KCPs of the world, they're deep. It's not like they're just running 2 guys out there. The same way that the Heat aren't running 2 guys out there. Denver's not running two guys out there.
Yeah.
The only thing that really worries me, guys, is that when a team sits down for a week or two, it worries me a little bit. And it worries me in the NFL also. When you see teams, and the Giants did this a while back ago when they went wild card and rode that to the Super Bowl. They were hot. They were playing teams that have been sitting down for 2 weeks.
Yep.
And I believe that can be a crutch, so to speak. You can't really simulate pro basketball. Like, you got to be out there playing the game. And the Heat are going to be, 3 days removed from playing versus Denver, which is going to be like 2 weeks, a week or two almost removed from playing competitive basketball. So it'll just be a feel for how long does it take them to shake off the cobwebs. Like, do they shake the cobwebs off quick and can get a hold of it? Does it take them a quarter or two and then they kind of get their groove? Or is Miami able to go and steal one because Denver's is sleeping on them and not really in the right groove? I don't believe Denver's going to make the same mistake that a lot of teams made with Miami. Sleeping on Miami is what a lot of teams did, but Denver slept on itself. So I don't see it making the same mistake that a lot of teams have made up to this point.
Well, of course, any team that beats LeBron is definitely my favorite.
Yo, goodness gracious. You know, LeBron's a pretty good player, James. He's not a bum.
He's all right. He's all right. I heard he's done a few things.
Yeah. But at some point, it's time to sit down. Magic sat down. Isaiah sat down. Joe Dumars sat down. At some point, I don't care how good you are. And a good example of that was, how many points did he score in the second half? He scored 31.
I just don't agree with you. I got to stop you. No.
Well, I will say that
all the guys
here, he did average
sat down for a
28.9 for the season. He averaged 28.9 on 50% shooting. That's pretty good numbers for any human being. He averaged 28.9, 8 and 6 and 7, or 8 and 7. That's pretty typical LeBron James number right there.
His numbers are great, but he's supposed to be the number 2. There's a guy there named AD that you guys have been talking about for the last decade or almost about how good he is. Come on. Draymond beat him down.
Salty Laker fan. I love it.
Well, I think
I'm not a Laker
pretty good
fan.
too. He's not bad. He's not a bum either.
I'm a Golden State Warrior fan, but we saw what happened.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Right. That makes even more sense. That makes even more sense.
Yeah.
I think that was by the Lakers, as if I'm not mistaken. I think the Lakers put Golden State.
Oh, we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
Right.
We're gonna get to that. Don't worry.
Yeah, the Lakers knocked him out in 6 at home. But now I think I've heard the rust versus rust theory. Denver hasn't played basketball in so many weeks, and the Heat only had 3. Well, there's also the non-rest factor. How long can they keep on going at that pace? Because it's not the way it used to be, where you have all that travel time now. And it's 2-2-1-1-1? I believe that's because it starts in Denver. I think it'll be a gentleman's sweep at best.
At best.
At best.
Wow.
But I see Bill down here in the corner. And we lose Reggie just as Bill comes.
We had Demetrius on a second ago. I'm not sure where Demetrius
is. I know. I was very excited when I saw Demetrius. I was all tinged up.
I'm sure he'll be back. But we were talking about Game 7.
I heard. I believe one member of the panel here did pick the Heat in 7 when we were talking about this series when it first began.
I wish I could say that was me, but it was not.
It may not have been you, but it was one of us.
Are you trying to get the? Was it you?
It may have been me, it may have been one of the other. It was one of us. The point is that one of us did it. That's really what matters. It's a team effort. It doesn't matter who knocked the puck in the net. The point is that we scored. It played out almost exactly as I thought it would. So the more mentally tough team, when mental toughness was called for, was more mentally tough. How is that surprising to anybody?
I was talking about the first play of the game and how Tatum never recovered. So I'm saying, but coming from a different source, probably, like whatever happens, you have to play through that. You can't say, hold up your hand and say, oops, I'm hurt, if you're supposed to be the leader. I think Demetrius did that on purpose. He wanted to make another dramatic entrance, but
there we go.
Mr. Carroll. Sorry, guys.
So exciting. I am so happy. I cannot tell you. I mean, there's the birth of my daughter who recently graduated from high school. So there's that. The birth of my daughter who graduated from high school. The day I got married. And probably, I got commissioned. That's in there somewhere. But this is right there in that mix, seeing Demetrius again. This has been, I keep thinking about like when Celie saw her sister again.
Daddy! Celie! Yeah, I got
you. I've not heard that reference in a long time. I know. I'm not expecting that tonight. I'll tell you that.
We gotta cut it out. It's great to be back. I don't want to creep David out.
Oh my gosh.
It is great to be back, though.
It's so exciting. I'm so happy. I so wanted to talk to you about the Lions draft and all these other things, but that can wait. So the thing that I've said, and I still have not.
A little early tonight.
I said if somehow Pat Beverly could somehow be given like 80% of Dwayne Wade, you'd have Jimmy Butler, right? He's got that Pat Beverly, like that whole Pat Bev, like irritant, like Cortland Sutton, the basketball mindset, combined with actual talent, like 4/5 of Dwayne Wade talent, right? You put those two things together and you get Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is the kind of player, if he's the best player on your team, you think, oh, we probably should try to get another player, right? Because you always think our best player shouldn't be Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler knows that's what you think. And that drives him, right? I'll show you all, And he goes into the laboratory and Victor Von Doom crawls back scarred and angered, right? And pledges that he will show them. And that's what goes on inside of Jimmy Butler, right? I've watched him most of his college career. And, I mean, he literally looked up to Dwayne Wade to the point that I think that's why he went to Marquette. And I watched him carry Marquette teams that were, fairly deep into NCAA runs. And when he and Tom Thibodeau were both here, I thought to myself, if they somehow do not kill each other, they're going to win a championship. But unfortunately, they could not coexist. So that had to be split up, I guess. But if they had somehow worked it out, if either one of them had been a little more mature, I think that would have been eventually a championship, right? Because he doesn't need superstars. He needs really good pieces, and he can get you to a title game.
Yep.
And when you look at sort of that contrasted against, while Denver isn't a super team in the Los Angeles Lakers, Philadelphia 76ers sense, they're a super team. In the team sense, my God, that team is good. Oh, you need passing? We've got 3 or 4 top flight passers. Oh, you need shooting? We've got 3 or 4 top flight shooters. Rebounders? We got a couple of those. Defense? We may not be an elite defensive team. We got 2 or 3 really good defenders. Like, there's nothing you can point to say they can't do that. There's nothing you can point to say, oh, they're really weak at that. They don't have a single, oh my God, amazing lockdown defender. You know, Gary the Glove Payton isn't about to come out on the floor for them, but they've got multiple good defenders. They've got at least one or two guys that can defend the post. They've got at least one or two guys that can defend out on the perimeter. And they've got some guys who can get into the passing lane and get you some steals. None of them are, you know, first team all defense, you know, Scottie Pippins, whatever, but they have two or three of everything that's good. And then they have this one. Somebody was making, people throwing around comparisons. You know, Larry Bird was mentioned, McHale was mentioned, a combination of Larry Bird and McHale was mentioned. The player that he reminds me most of when I think about him is if you got this a young, healthy Arvydas Sabonis, right, before his body completely broke down. If you saw him in like the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics when he was young and healthy, could run and pass and dribble, that's what he reminds me of. And of course, the game was different then. But I think if a young, healthy Arvydas Sabonis had gotten to play in this, frankly, more European version of the NBA than when he played, he would have a similar impact. And unfortunately, we never got to see the real Arvydas Sabonis in the NBA. But that's what I think of. This team is just so good. And as much as I love the way the Heat play basketball, someone mentioned a gentleman's sweep. I think they can probably get 2 games gutted out.
Yeah. I
think it goes 6. And at least one of those games, Jimmy Butler is the best player, despite how good Denver is the best player on the floor in at least one of those games. We go, oh my God, how does he do it? He shouldn't be this good. And then when they lose, he's going to vow revenge again and slink back to his lair.
Don, how are you doing this season?
Full house. Woo!
I'm doing good. Doing good.
Our long lost brother is back.
Mr. Hayes.
Oh my
Demetrius.
Fully expect to get an appearance from Ranger before the show is over. You know that's the deal.
I can arrange it.
All right.
So, Don, what did you think about Game 7?
Didn't watch it.
I didn't watch Game 7. What the hell are you talking about?
That's how you set it off, Don.
Love the transparency there. Love the transparency. I did not watch that.
I have not watched the NBA game all year. I'm just listening to y'all talk.
But you watched the draft lottery, didn't you? I bet you watched that.
Yeah. I have it on my ESPN. Da-da-da. I have one. Yeah.
And he even gave us some talk about Pop.
Oh, nice.
So no one says a sweep except me. Well, gentleman sweep, I call it.
See 1 to 2 games.
Everyone expects it to go at least 6.
I'm going all in with Jimmy Buckets and say this thing does go 6. I don't see them winning 4 times. But I'm such a Jimmy Butler guy. I admitted it earlier. I love Jimmy Butler, man, and I think he's going to single-handedly win 2 games by himself.
Wow!
And
if they had 2 Jimmy Butlers, watch out.
Yeah, I think he'll win 2 games by. Well, I think Reggie made a good point earlier. Denver will sleepwalk Game 1. Just it's human behavior. They've been off too long. And I think they steal that one. And then I think there's a pride thing. They win a game at home in Miami on the strength of Jimmy. So that's what I mean. I don't know if I'm boosting them up by saying they can go 6, but Denver, again, to Reggie's point, has had to chip all year. It's not new to them. So
and the best team in the NBA.
Exactly.
Not for nothing.
Yeah. Right. There is that. Yeah.
Reggie?
I don't know if I can reiterate anymore. Like it's a couple games. I think 1 or 2 games. I have respect for Jimmy, but I have more respect for Denver as a team. Denver's a great team. It's a great team. It's a great, like, when you're watching, I think Jokic, even though has to be the most underrated 2-time MVP winning guy because he looks like a guy that I work with randomly. I could work with this guy.
We all
work. He's a guy giving you he has like 28 and 10 by the end of the first half casually. He'll casually have that. He's if you are a fan of the sport, you know that it used to be big man driven. There's a lot of big man legends in the sport, but to see this big man getting double-digit assists consistently is unheard of. It's unheard of. Big men don't average double-digit assist. And you got to respect them at the three-point line. You're going to have to run out there. You can't just leave them unguarded. You're going to have to run out there. So I think that Denver just has too much, even with the Aaron Gordons of the world. Like, they just have too much. They have too much on there. To Michael Porter Jr. playing up to his potential is too much. You got to expect Caleb Martin to give you 30 again. And I don't know if he's going to do that 4 or 5 games. He gave you 30 once. But I don't know if he can keep giving you 30. And I'm not sure people maybe they get Hero back, which will close the gap, guys, if Hero comes back. But they've been getting incredible play out of Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin. And I just watching the NBA, the slipper comes off eventually when you run up against a better team. And I don't know if they're going to be able to keep that slipper on Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin. I'm not sure if Denver is going to let them have at it. Boston will give you a couple games of series. They've been known to do this. So Boston will give you those games. They'll take the games off. But I think Denver's too hungry. I think they're just as hungry as the Heat are. Both of them have been disrespected all year. And they don't have any reason to be disrespected. They were disrespected as the 1 seed. They were disrespected. Right. So I believe that a game or two, just because, like you guys said, I have respect for Jimmy. So I'm going to give him a game or two because I have respect for him.
Okay. All right. Well, Reggie, were you surprised that Nick Nurse took the 76ers over the Suns as his new job?
No, not really. Only because, guys, I expected this to be musical chairs. I think we talked about this before when all the coaches left. I expected these guys to take each other's jobs somewhere, however they fell, they were going to take each other's jobs somewhere. And I felt like having so many people who had one coach of the year get fired probably hastened other people's exits because they're like, well, I can get another coach of the year, so I could just now freely move off this guy. Even if I would have kept him another year, if the coaching carousel didn't look so great as it looks this year. You got a lot of good coaches that are just randomly available. So it didn't surprise me that he took the 76ers over the Suns. I mean, I like the Suns more than the 76ers, but not much more. Like, they're not way greater. Like, especially, I'd have to know what's going on with CP3. Like, without knowing what CP3's situation is, what am I getting with the Suns? Kevin Durant and Devin Booker? We already know DeAndre Ayton decides when he wants to play and when he doesn't. So I feel like I got 2 guys there. And if I go to, I think Harden is going to lead the 76ers. I'm not sure if he stays there. But
he's already said he's gone.
He's gone? Okay. So then, you got Embiid with the 76ers. I feel like these teams are closer than they look. So I think some of it can be like city fit for you. Maybe you just like the area better. There could be a lot of things that factor in when the teams are so close.
And also the East versus West. I mean, not to say the East is easy.
You keep your job longer in the East.
Right, exactly. I'm not saying the East is easy, but it's easier.
Yeah, I think Philly's a better job. I'm going to be honest. I think it's a better job. I think there's a degree of drama that comes with Durant. I think Reggie made a point about CP3's body has been breaking down for years. Yes. That train's on the tracks. We see it coming. Embiid is playing the best basketball of his career. And if Harden leaves, you know what that is? That's a big old chunk of cap space that you can fill in. And Tyrese Maxey is still good. I still love Tobias Harris. They've got pieces there. I think Philly's a better job, to be quite honest. So, yeah, and then Bill put the cherry on top. That's the East. It's a better job largely because it's in the East. And you have quite possibly the second best player in the league right now playing his best basketball. You can quickly be – no, you're already relevant, right? And if you use Harden's cap space to add 2 quality players, which it's enough money, you could do that. You'll be right back there. And if Boston blows their whole thing up, it's wide open. East is literally wide open.
Well, what did you think, Demetrius, about Giannis? He talked to Doc and Nick Nurse before he decided to take Adrian Griffin.
Yeah, I think you should. I think Giannis has earned that, right? I think this goes back to Magic getting Westhead fired before some of these guys were born. but it is you want that. It's credibility in the locker room. Griffin walks into that locker room now with a stamp that says Giannis approved. Like a piece of meat, right? That says FDA approved. He's got a stamp like on the back of his head that says Giannis approved. So now he gets a different level of credibility day one. because everybody knows he's gone through the filter and Giannis has approved it, and you've got to get in line behind that guy on that team. And that's a different area. That's Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You could do things differently there, right? And they weren't that far off, if you ask me. They had a couple of injuries, or we might still be talking about them right now. So I think that's another good job. I think Griffin did his time. He spent like 9 or 10 years in the league, 15 as an assistant. This is a guy who defensive schemes that's his strength, his defensive schemes. So he's going to bring that to them, and I think it's a good hire for that team. I think it's a great hire for that team. So they drafted. I think he played for them. I don't know if they drafted him or he played for them at some point in time, and he was an assistant there. So they know who he is. They know what he's about. The guy's not. I mean, he's got a doctorate in organizational leadership, for God's sake. He brings something to the table. So I think it's a great hire.
Bill.
This is one of those great feel-old moments for me. I watched him, of course, back when the Big East was popping on ESPN, right? And Dickie B was calling the games. So I have very clear memories of Adrian Griffin as a player at Seton Hall. And he's going to do well. And partially because of some of the things so I get to follow. I get to follow so many great pearls of wisdom just tossed before us. This is a guy that, one, is very, very respected, very ready for this. A former CBA MVP, right? And a guy that, earned his stripes at every level. Earned his stripes as a player, earned his stripes as a assistant coach, even coached. He's coached somewhere outside of the NBA too. I'm trying to remember where. Can't remember, but he's coached a lot, and coached for the Bucks, coached for the Bulls. Has been with the Magic, has been with Oklahoma City, Toronto, and of course Milwaukee. Now, but he's made teams better, helped to make teams better every place he's been. I remember him, fighting his way essentially through this. And this was mentioned, right? I mean, a very bright, a brilliant guy. And he has a son, right, who was drafted, was it just last year?
Yeah, he plays in Atlanta.
Right. So his son was
AJ.
Just drafted. Right. Was just drafted last year. He has another son who was originally here. Not here, but it was University of Illinois for a couple of seasons, and now I believe is at Syracuse. And his daughter plays for not Lou Conestica. What's his name? Wrong Italian. Gino Auriemma plays for Gino Auriemma at UConn. It's a basketball family. He's been pretty much all ball for the past darn near 30 years of his life, maybe more. This is a basketball person.
Reggie.
I hope he does okay. But I will say, because his son does play here in Atlanta, I'm going to say I hope he does okay. But it's difficult because of the shoes he's stepping into. So when you look at the shoes that he's going to step into, and you look at the guy who just walked out of Milwaukee. So the guy who just walked out of Milwaukee won almost 70% of his games. The guy that walked out of Milwaukee brought you your first championship in 50 years. The guy that walked out of Milwaukee was there for the last 5 years of Giannis's career, but Giannis played there 5 years before Coach Bud got there. And Giannis didn't have all winning seasons. Coach Bud had all winning seasons, less than 50 wins in only one season. What does this guy have to do to be better? And I don't know what he can do. Like it's when you have a coaching record like that, when you have a coaching resume like that, the next guy's got to come in and win 71% of his games, have to go win 2 championships. I don't understand how he does better than the guy that they just let go. So as much as I do hope, I wish him luck. I don't have any real reason to dislike the guy. But I'm very big, and this even killed me back in the day. Some of y'all might remember years and years ago when the Chargers let Schottenheimer go at 14-2. We had a 14-2 record. He let Schottenheimer go. I remember thinking, you guys are crazy because the next guy better come in and get y'all over that hump, because you just let a guy who just only lost 2 games this season out of there. So you got a guy in Coach Bud who won almost 70% of his games. It's not easy to win. And when I looked at Milwaukee, first championship in 50 years, I looked at a team that you guys aren't the Lakers. You guys aren't the Celtics. Y'all don't have championships just hanging in the rafters there. You don't have a bunch of banners hanging up there. So I wish him luck, but I just don't know what he's going to have to do to be better than the guy they just let go.
You know,
I think we live though in a "what have you done for me lately" society. So the
Oh,
answer
no
to
doubt,
your
no doubt
question
about it.
is make it to the second round of the playoffs because they went out in the
if
first
he
round.
can win
I
a
think
chip,
that's the answer.
He's going to have to win a chip, though, Demetrius, because before Coach Bud got there, they won nothing in 50 years.
I agree.
What about all those coaches? What had they done for the Bucks for the last 50 years?
yeah.
I agree.
So it's kind of
But-
like if that's the case, I do get it. And I think another thing, too, guys, with this is just why I'm so much more on this now than I was in the beginning. Because initially he got beat by a play-in team, but now that play-in team's in the finals.
Right.
And now Giannis missed 2 of those games in that series.
Exactly.
So to act as if somebody could have pulled another coach down here and beat the Miami Heat, who's beating everybody, I believe it was a bit premature because I think that the fact that the Heat were a play-in team and everybody had picked them to win, I'm not sure if we would not be there if we get to the end and see they actually made it to the finals versus they just beat us. You know what I mean?
No, I think you're absolutely right. But I think your 15-year assistant want your first coaching job, right? You can't go, I can't take it because Bud was too good.
Oh, you're going to take it. I would take that job, Demetrius. I've never coached a day in my life. I'll take it right now and get off the show.
Yeah.
I'll take it right
make a
now.
good point, though. But right, exactly. I'm leaving the pod early. I got a call from Milwaukee. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Good luck to him.
Yeah.
Perfectly understandable because I don't think any of us understood how the coach got fired anyway.
Yeah. Which
Like you said.
he makes a great point. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different question.
That is.
I don't think they should have fired Budenholzer, but I still believe very strongly in Adrian Griffin.
Don, you can jump in here. We're going to talk a little college football just for a minute. Dave, you can jump in on any of these questions if you like. But Demetrius, I'm going to let you start this one off.
Oh, I get to go first, yes.
Yes. Ticket sales, of course, were a record single-day sales for their first game. And Deion is, so that proves that Deion has the fans. But what will the Buffalo record be at the end of the season?
Not good enough because the PR thing is great, and I'm not anti. It's gonna sound like it for the next 45 seconds, but I'm not. I promise. That's all well and good, but you said he's got the fans. No, we're all probably really smart fans. You know what gets fans every single time? Wins. You can do all the promotions and all that Deion coaching time, bring all 85 of your kids, whatever you want to do. If y'all don't make a meaningful bowl, they will turn on you like that. They will immediately, and it's not about us. It's boosters. He's got them by. They're falling for the banana in the tailpipe is what they're doing right now. Another old man reference, but I hope y'all know what it is. So right now he's got to win games, and I'm not even saying I don't think they're good. I think he just stepped up a level, a major step up from what he had been doing, and this is real big boy football now, man. This is. So this is not about creativity and wizardry and schematics. It's about recruiting. And my kids are bigger than your kids. My kids are faster than your kids. And he's about to. So I will do the Reggie doesn't really like that Bud got fired kind of. I wish you luck. With no sincerity behind it at all. I wish you luck. So.
Don, what's your thoughts about Coach Deion and the Buffaloes?
Well, so there's I would say a lot of pain he's going to suffer this year. I think 2/3 of his team he had to replace. He hit the transfer portal, but he had some crappy players. Colorado's been terrible. And then they've never been able to find the right coach to come in. And I don't know if Deion is it, but he can't do any worse than his predecessors. keep in mind, Colorado in the past, like when I was in college, they won national championship. They ran, option football. They were recruiting real well out of California. Their offense, their defense. A lot of those guys came from the Houston area here in Texas. They recruited well. And I don't know if y'all ever been to Boulder, Colorado. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful campus, beautiful scenery. Can't take too deep a breaths because you'll get stoned. But that's just living, Rocky Mountain High, I guess, in Colorado. But it's beautiful. So there are things in place to make that a competitive program. He's selling a lot of tickets. I caught snippets of the spring game. Their defense has got awful. They can't tackle. Their technique was terrible. They look like, a lot of freshmen out there, like, they know what they're doing. So Deion's got his work cut out. The Buffalo Nation is going to have to be very patient. I don't expect them to win maybe 1 or 2 games this year.
Wow.
However, I think you get 2 or 3 recruiting classes under his belt. I think Deion will be competitive, and there's some talk that they might be moving back to the Big 12, which I think would be a great thing for them because that opens up Texas again. Colorado really hasn't hit Texas like they used to, but if they get the Big 12, that opens that up also.
Yeah. I think 3 of his players will be his sons. Dave, you want to jump in here?
Sure. I think one advantage that Deion Sanders has is low expectations. Colorado was 1-11 last year. And he pulled a Chuck Noll move, basically said, hey, you're in with me or you're out, just like Chuck Noll did way back in 1969 with the Steelers, and a lot of players left. But he also, in addition to his sons, he brought in a defensive back, Travis Hunter, who was highly recruited. And you talk about recruiting. Travis Hunter was originally going to go to, I think, Florida State. Deion Sanders got him in. He was a highly sought-after high school player. He convinced him to go to Jackson State. And now this Travis Hunter is following Deion to Colorado. So he has something in addition to the ticket sales. And, their schedule, they got a lot of teams that had losing records last year. They have some tough games. TCU, USC, Oregon State. It's going to be, I think it's going to be tough to come across wins. I believe the over-under on Colorado for wins is 4.5 games. I'm putting them at just under at four wins. But 4 wins after 1-11 season, I would say that they would be pretty happy with the direction that the team is going.
How do you recruit? How do you win 4 games and then you go down to Florida or Texas, sit in a living room? You just go, I'm Coach Prime. Come. Is that how it's going to work?
That's about 60% of it right there. That's 60% of the speech. You just gave it.
Right. I'm Coach Prime. But on his way into the driveway, he passed Kirby Smart driving down the street, right? And Nick Saban is waiting over at the airport. He gonna be here tomorrow. I don't see how that works. That's all I'm saying. I wish him the best. I don't see how it works.
Yeah, part of the way that it might work is the players that are going, just like he got Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was going to a big-time program, Florida State.
Yeah.
He got him to go to Jackson State. Part of that is, hey, are you going to be starting for Florida State? I got a place for you where you're going to be on the market right away. And now with the money attached to the players, where they're now being able to increase their value while they're in college, it might be more important to some of these young high school kids to be a starter right away rather than buried behind an Alabama or a Georgia team. where they're buried down on the roster.
But at
Just a
Jackson
thought.
State, every week, Travis Hunter was probably the best player on the field. Right? No matter who the opponent was, Travis Hunter was probably the best player on the field. That ain't the case at Colorado.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. I wish him the best. In the Reggie way, I wish him the best. Okay.
Come on, Reggie. With that, you can chime in here.
I mean, I'm going to pretty much just piggyback off what guys said here. I mean, it's unless sometimes you get a player of a Prime's caliber, and that player in of itself is going to attract a certain amount of attention because that's Prime. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's an exciting Hall of Famer. But he's not running out there. He's not suiting up. And you're going to have to win games. You're going to have to go out there and actually win games. So it's interesting to see how long. I mean, all this showing up in ticket sales is great. But winning is going to provide you with a decent amount of ticket sales also. If you can win games, you're going to sell more tickets. And I do get it, but I believe there's a honeymoon effect here that's taking place right now.
Yeah.
And that honeymoon effect is going to wear off if he continues to lose week after week and has to go up to the podium and explain those losses week after week after week. The honeymoon period can get shorter and shorter and shorter. If you're a one-win team, I don't know what the expectation can be here. You got to give a guy 2 or 3 years on a one-win team because you're still dealing with the other guy's decisions whenever you come to a team. You're still working with the other guy's decisions. So Prime needs to be able to go in there, set a culture like he's working on doing, getting the culture set. That's fine. You got to get players to buy in. You probably got to have some good W's so you can attract some other good recruits that want to come to your school. And another good point that was brought up here at the end is, living down here in Atlanta, it's hard to take players out of Georgia, Florida, Alabama. It's hard to take players out of the South and take them somewhere else. Like we do a good job of recruiting our own players down here for the most part. I do think some will go to play for Prime because Prime is just an exciting guy. I love Deion. So he's an exciting guy. But end of the day, it's gonna have to be W's, and he's gonna have to come up with some wins, or else this is gonna wear off pretty fast.
Put your cap on, Bill.
So here's a fun fact. Of the 2 deep on offense and defense, you want to guess how many of them are not transfers on the 2 deep? So this is the first and second string, offense and defense combined. You want to just throw out a number of how many of them are not transfers?
Just 44 players, right?
The 2 deep is a total of 44 players. You want to guess how many of the 2 deep are not transfers?
I'm going to make a ridiculous guess and say
single digits,
10.
man.
Oh, it's single digits?
I'll say 5.
Single digits.
Whoever said 5 nailed it.
Wow.
Yes.
5
low.
of the
Definitely
people
low.
of the 2 deep. So here's the members of the 2 deep who are not transfers, because it's easier to name them than name the transfers.
Kickers, punters.
Well, no, Gerard Christian Lichtenstein managed to hang in there at left tackle. Well done. Von Wells at center, right? A legacy, I guess I would call it, legacy player on the team last year. Luke Eckhart, who was their backup right guard, number 2 right guard, was on the team last year. On strong safety, Trevor Woods, right? Junior, managed to stick it out. He's the only projected starter on defense who is not a transfer.
Man.
And
brought it with him. Brought his whole team with him.
Marvin Ham, who is the second string middle linebacker, also was on the team last year. That's the list. That's the guys who are on the 2 deep who are not transfers. Somebody says about culture. Well, the culture is Deion's culture because he got rid of pretty much everybody else. Now, it's going to take a while for that team to gel because they're doing a lot of, your name is, like a lot of name tags in practice. Like, right? Hey, I was at Florida Atlantic last year. Oh, cool. Yeah, where were you last year? I was at Auburn. A lot of that. So this is going to be a Bingo Long's traveling, since we're going old, Bingo Long's traveling all-stars kind of approach to putting a team together. So if he gets to 5 wins, they should carry him off the field on their shoulder, right? If they get to 5 wins, they should just dip him in bronze and just erect the statue right at that moment, because this will be, it's unprecedented. It is unprecedented. No one's ever gone this transfer heavy in the history of college football. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Now, admittedly, this is a different world. Like, college football has changed, but no one's ever had this many transfers in their two deep, in their projected two deep, ever. 5 out of 44 members of the offense, defense, two deep are returning players who were at Colorado last year.
I think David's being generous with 4. I think David's a nice guy because they don't feel like 4 wins there to me. Sorry.
Well, I was going by the over-under. I'm taking the under. And
yeah, you're taking the under.
They start out with TCU. I think that the interesting game will be Nebraska. That's the second game of the season.
Yes.
Nebraska was 4-8 last year. They're not the power. Now we'll see, where does Colorado really stack up?
The Who Sucks Less Bowl is now brought to you by.
That second game of the season, I think it is going to show a lot the direction that team's going to go.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Don, should the SEC keep an 8-game schedule?
That was, that's been the talk on the message boards that I've been watching here in Texas. I would kind of like to see them go 9, but I don't make those decisions. But I would really like to see them do the 9 game. In that way, you have your 2 patsies, and then you can, because that SEC is brutal. It's going to get brutal in 2025, or 2024. I'm sorry, where you're away from the Red China. So yeah,
Reggie, that's your guys.
Yeah, we're very arrogant down here. It doesn't matter how many games we play. We're SEC football. We don't 9, 8, 7, 6. We're going to be just as arrogant as can be.
Wow.
Until somebody knocks us off for years and years and years to come. We can't have no SEC teams in the top 5 or 6. It's enough for us. That's all we need down here. We're good to go. We think we're going to beat everybody. And I don't think any of this changes that opinion, guys. We still think we still think that when it's all said and done, we think the SEC is the center of the college football universe, no matter how many games are played. And I don't see that really changing unless one of the teams like your Georgias or Alabamas of the world just fall all the way off. And it might take both of them falling off before we even consider that we're not the center of the college football universe. And even then, it would just be in consideration. We'd still feel that we were somewhat the center of the college
only
football
willing
universe.
to consider it.
Right. Just only for us to consider those things that would not be around, and maybe we'll consider. But other than that, guys, doesn't matter to me if they keep the 8-game, 9-game, whatever.
Word just in from Comrade Stala. The beatings will continue until morale improves. Okay, got it. Right.
I have to throw something in on there. So they talked at the last meeting about how the SEC is supposed to keep a rivalry game, right? So Oklahoma and Texas, they immediately point to us. I want you. Texas like, I want Oklahoma. Oklahoma's like, I want Texas. And A&M's like, we want Texas. I'm like, piss on you, Aggies.
So I guess that's one of the differences between the 8 and the 9-game conference schedule. Is one of the things that I read is if they stick with the 8-game, since they're a 16-team league, right? There'll be a 16-team conference. Well, with the 8-game proposal, they would have one rivalry match and then rotate the other 7 year to year. Whereas with the 9-game, they would have 3 annual rivalries with 6 games rotating. And so I think for the SEC fans, they would probably rather have the 9, I would think. If I were an SEC fan, I would go for the 9 conference schedule.
Yeah, I think. So I think the thing is, it's about the same thing it's always about, right? Yeah. At the end of this, what it's about. Yeah. So what they're doing is they're working backwards, and they're saying, in a 12-team college football playoff field, how do we get a 3-loss SEC team in? SEC team. That's what they're thinking, right?
Rough.
But now, if you have that kind of schedule, you're gonna have that, and we can see that trend. And that team will be one of the best 12 teams in the country. Why? Because you can get 3 losses in the SEC and still be one of the best 12 teams in the country. That's what they're worried about. Some 3-loss SEC team is going to get boxed out of the playoffs because the committee never makes clear, what the damn rules are, right? So until they figure out the rules of this 12-team playoff, some SEC teams, competitive balance is real. That's what they're going to say, and that's legitimate, right? But it's really about them trying to get like 5 teams in the 12, which is not even unrealistic. It sounds ridiculous, but it's
not to us down here, Demetrius.
Of course not.
Absolutely
you don't
not.
even consider that.
That's where we start down here, 4 or 5 teams.
To them, their thought is anything less than 5 teams in that field of 12 doesn't make sense. But 5 teams, somebody can have 3 losses easily and fully deserve to be in that field. So it's stuff like that as a conference they're thinking about. And I don't blame them. They're absolutely right. But that's what it's. They'll say stuff like, "Oh, we got to make sure everybody's bowl eligible, and we're worried about parity and all that other bullshit." Oh, whoops, are we after dark?
No, we're after dark. You're good.
So all that other stuff. The reality is they're looking ahead, saying every year there better be 5 teams, at minimum 5, right? Because that's just they get out of bed, like Reggie said, they get out of bed assuming 5 of the 12 teams are going to be from the SEC. That's what I think they're worried about. And that's harder when you do 9 because of what David said. You're going to have 3 probably really tough games. And somebody, just because of numbers, math, somebody's losing 3 games and will fully deserve to be in the field. Right? And so I think that's a big part of it.
There you go. See, Mr. Scott was right. See, here you come with your analytics and talking about the numbers.
You know what I do for a living. He knows what I do for a living. Hell yeah, I'm bringing stats to the table.
Bill, what's your thoughts on this?
Right. Well,
8, 9.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it would be 9, but we do not live in a perfect world. And once again, I'm stuck following Demetrius, but there's.
He haven't followed Demetrius for 6.5 months.
I gave him plenty of time.
That was right. Plenty of time to recover. But there's 2 songs that leap to mind, right? We got, if you've seen the musical Cabaret, you may know that there is a showstopper where you get to hear a mark, a yen, a buck, or a pound, that clinking sound that makes the world go round, or the philosopher poets of the Wu-Tang Clan, who told us, cream, cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bills, y'all. If you understand either of those 2 philosophies, you understand everything that goes into this decision. It's going to be 8. They can pretend, they can discuss, they can consider 9, but it'll be 8. You know it, I know it, and we know it. Yeah. Next question.
Yeah. Well done.
Now you guys know why I was a non-commissioned officer. But anyway.
You got things done.
and learning the bars to Cabaret was not one of them.
Very nice.
So let's see. Reggie, I think I'm going to start with you with this next one. Is Georgia going to 3-peat?
I hope they don't. Roll Tide over here. Absolutely. I don't want them to 3-peat. But it's kind of like if Alabama doesn't, I definitely do want them to 3-peat. I'm back in the game. I do want them to 3-peat if Alabama is somehow out of it. And then if Georgia does it down here in the South, we just want it to be anybody in the SEC. We'll take anybody now. As long as it's an SEC team, then we're fine with it. But can they 3-peat? For sure. I don't see why not. But I'm hoping that Bama's got something to say about that. Is what I'm hoping.
Bill,
can they? Sure, it's entirely possible. Kirby Smart is building an unstoppable killing machine in Athens. I just keep thinking that something will go awry, key injury. I don't know. It's so hard to do it once. It just seems almost inconceivable they can do it 3 times. And then they'll do it, and I'll be like, oh, well, I guess it's conceivable. But it's so hard. Like, people don't realize how hard it is to win. In the SEC, period, it's hard to win any games, right? Unless it's Vanderbilt. But it's hard to win any games, excluding Vanderbilt. And to win the number of games, that they have to win to make the playoffs, well, and then they're going to be in the playoffs. So we got to pencil them in the playoffs. I don't know who they're going to face. But let's say they face, I don't know, they're the top seed, I guess. So the lowest seed that gets in, I don't know, Penn State, just to, throw a team out there.
What's wrong with Bill?
What kind of bullshit is this?
Yeah,
Oregon.
Okay,
No,
Oregon. If it makes you feel better, Oregon.
Right, Oregon.
Okay. Do we see a way that Oregon beats them, even if they have a quote unquote down year? I don't think any of us think so.
No.
So in the second round of the playoffs, who are they facing? That's the real
Alabama.
Probably Alabama. Now it gets interesting, right? Now it gets interesting. So let's say that they are facing Alabama. We know that until recently, the kryptonite for all of Saban's former assistants was Saban. And now someone has survived the kryptonite. Someone has pushed through that. I'd be fascinated to see if that is how it plays out, what actually happens. As a betting man, if I were a betting man, I would probably take the field versus Georgia. But if Georgia did it again, would I be shocked? No, obviously not. But I think we're not realizing how difficult what they're doing is, right? How difficult it is to keep doing this anywhere, let alone the SEC, and to do it in the SEC where it just matters more. It really puts it all into perspective what Kirby Smart is doing. He is putting himself into the conversation with incredible rapidity of, not just a top coach right now, but we're going to talk about him in a historical basis in the next couple of years, should this continue. He's going to be talked about the way we talk about the Tom Osbornes and the Jimmy Johnsons and, John McKays and Woody Hayeses. And he's going to push his way into that top 10, whatever conversation in the next couple of years, if this continues.
Dave, what do you think? Georgia 3?
Well, yeah, I'm going to say the odds are against them. And it's like even in the pre-playoff era, there's only been one team acknowledged as a three-peater, and that's Minnesota back in 1934, 35, and 36.
Wow, nice.
And that's when they were doing pools.
Yep.
And I got to say, Pitt was also considered a national champion in 1936 because he had competing pools. But that was, I think, the first year that the AP kind of, was on the map there. But that, teams before the playoffs, well, they would schedule patsies. They're easy games. Penn State was always famous for this. Their first couple games would be against horrible teams. And then you'd have several teams that were undefeated, and then there was a vote. But to me, it was easier then. Now you got to play to get that national championship. And I just think 3 times in a row, like if they do it, my hats are off to them. But I think it's like Alabama might want to say something about that.
Absolutely. I'm going to speak for Alabama and just say yes.
Come on, numbers, man.
But I live by statistics.
Yeah,
right? You know that. So when somebody tells me something's only happened once in history, that generally would make up my mind. Except I also have to do a little diligence, and I find out they're bringing back 13 starters. That Carson Beck might end up in New York in early December, right? I think their schedule sets up well. And another stat is they're 29-1 in the last 2 years. Brock Bowers might be the best player not playing quarterback in the country. He's that good. And I'm not a huge fan of the tight end position. I love Sam Laporta now, but that's another topic for another day. Brock Bowers is about to be a 3-time All-American. Look up the last time that happened. Now, that makes Carson Beck's work easier. They're set up to do it. If ever anyone was set up to do it, their running back room is good. Carson Beck's going to be a really nice quarterback. Brock Bowers is going to make him a really, and they've got a name and a slot receiver that I'm not even going to try and pronounce, so that's okay. But I know they got a really good slot receiver, and Bill will pull up his name and tell you what college his aunt went to. I don't know that, so but they're set up to do it. Now, I have families from Talladega, Leeds, and Riverside, Alabama. That's where my people are from. So when I'm not bleeding green and white of Michigan State, I will roll Tide. So I don't want them to do it, but I did the stats part. And except for the Minnesota piece, great pull, David.
Yes.
13 returning starters, a Heisman candidate, a quarterback. The schedule sets up for them. They've got one of the most talented players in the country on offense. I'm going to say, yeah. I'm going to say they're going to do it again.
Wow.
And while my relatives are yelling at me from Talladega right now, I can hear them. I think they can do it again. It's certainly possible.
Don, are you gonna talk some sense in this, man? Or yeah.
I've been off for 6 months, Don. You know that, right?
let me just say this. Georgia has emulated what Nick Saban did at Alabama, and so I'm gonna mention 3 teams: Ohio State, which I hate to mention them, Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia. They got people only 3 deep that are future first round, second round draft picks.
Yep.
The culture has got to where they expect to be in the playoffs. They expect to be playing for a championship. That's just that culture. And it takes a while to build it. You know, for so long, Nick Saban was it. And then, you know, when Georgia came open, that, you know, they started doing this same thing. And I think Texas is kind of getting there a little bit with Sark. But it's just the expectation. We will win. We will win. We will win. So if Georgia gets a three-peat, I'm like, it will not shock me, because if we go fast forward to the next draft, the 2024 draft, in the first 4 rounds, there'll be 5 guys from Alabama, with about 5 guys from Georgia, about 5 guys from Ohio State. Yeah. I mean, that's just
at least. That might be a low number, actually.
It might. You're right. It could be. So it's recruiting. It's about your culture. It's about recruiting. It's about building that foundation. And people just say, "Hey, I'm next up," you know. So I know that's what's hurt a lot of teams nowadays is depth. But you know, if you look at Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama, they always have depth. And so, you know, I expect probably those 4 teams to be in the playoffs. It would not shock me if Georgia didn't come up and, you know, win it.
So who are your 4 teams, Don?
Oh, I come jumped ahead tonight. I'm gonna just go with I'll go with probably Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama.
Oh yeah,
and probably USC. I think USC has that schedule. They have the returning Heisman guy, and year 2 of Lincoln Riley could be dangerous. He's a great coach. So I'd see USC getting that last slot.
Well, Demetrius has mentioned his possible Heisman Trophy winner. Who's yours?
Until he's knocked off, I have to go with Caleb Williams again. Let's repeat.
Oh, okay. Demetrius?
Heisman question or Final Four question? Or both?
You can answer both in either order you want.
Okay. The Heisman is a quarterback award. We all know that. It's not fair, but that's really what it is. I happen to have a real liking for Bo Nix, right? I mentioned earlier. You don't like Bo Nix?
Oh my goodness! Are we doing like the 30-year-old still playing quarterback Bo Nix? Are you talking about that same
Why-
Bo Nix that played at
Why
Auburn?
are we ages, bro? I'm 54.
Yeah, you know,
that ain't the route
I
to
feel
go.
like if Bo hasn't won it in his first 25 years of life, he's not going to win it now.
That's
my
fair, but
thinking,
you know. All right,
Double
fine.
review,
Michael
double
Penix.
review.
Fine. Michael Penix. Michael
We're
Penix
good.
is now my choice.
No, watch
because
Bo Nix now win it.
Apparently,
That's
Bo
not-
Nix is off the board. So I like Oregon, first of all. So
We're going to get Reggie's. Don't worry.
yeah. Well, I do like Michael Penix as well, but I didn't know I was going to get blasted for saying 2 words. Apparently, Bill, don't follow me and mention Bo Nix. That's my advice. No,
I wasn't planning to mention Bo Nix.
right. I know. I think that it's hard to do that twice statistically, right? We all know that. I won't do the stats. That's hard to do twice because now you're coming in and they expect you to be great. And if you really look at the Heisman, it often goes to a guy we thought was good and he turns out to be great. If they're coming in and they're saying you're great because you won it last year, imagine what Caleb's got to do, because he's got to be better than he was last year, like kind of going back to the Budenholzer point from earlier. To win it again, he's going to have to be ridiculous. So I think it's going to be somebody new. Drake May, I don't know. We could just throw names out. I happen to like Oregon and Bo Nix. So I'm sticking with what I said. I don't care how many people Reggie send up here to get me.
Reggie, I don't know. Let's see. I think it might be a senior citizens club against
All right.
you.
He went ages, man.
Yeah. But what was your address again? That process server?
Flight to Atlanta.
Okay. So, all right, young whippersnapper, give us yours, then. That's what we'll do.
But I'm gonna tell you who I don't think is gonna be okay.
Bo Nix.
I don't think it's gonna be Bo Nix. I was surprised when he said so. When Demetrius first said Bo Nix, I was surprised that he was still in the league. I almost had to check the stats when he said that. So that was my first surprise when he said Bo Nix. I'm like, what year is it? Is this guy still playing? And why is he not in the NFL or at least holding a clipboard somewhere? So.
I've never wanted a non-Michigan State player to have a better year than I do Bo Nix right now.
Bo Nix could have a decent year, maybe. I mean, what is his 7th year in the league? So I mean, he could have a decent year. But it's kind of, I'm going to piggyback off what Don said, because I kind of agree with everything he said. Then agree with the teams that he chose for the 4. I do think that prohibitive favorite would have to be Caleb Williams right now, but piggybacking off what Demetrius said, like, what is the guy gonna have to do? Like, it's they tend to, and I hate that people do this, but people will take into account that you won an award a previous year and take that away from you a little bit. Like, well, let's just give it to a new guy, even if it's kind of like close. So I'm gonna go with Caleb Williams, but it's gonna be very hard for him to get over that hump. And I really need to come into next year and see which quarterback is really starting to separate themselves from it. And I'm not, maybe some of these other skill position players, I don't know. It takes a lot for another skill position player to win over a quarterback. But I don't know. Maybe one of these guys, young guys, steps up this year.
Dave.
Well, for my 4, they've already been named. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and I, like Don, I said USC.
Yeah.
We'll see how the season plays out. Now, for the Heisman winner, I'm going to go out of the box a little bit. I'm going to say that Shader Sanders leads the Colorado Buffaloes to a winning record.
Oh, you already picked them under 4.5. How the hell?
Hey, cognitive dissonance.
Okay, got you. Yep, that works. That works.
But I'm gonna go with Shader Sanders. He's gonna surprise everybody and lead Colorado to a winning record.
Wow.
And get the Heisman.
Wow.
They deserve
like 4 or 5 games in the last couple of minutes.
I know.
Wouldn't college football love that story?
Some people would.
Deion,
Right.
But Bill, your Heisman and your Final 4.
Yeah, this has been interesting. So it is very hard to repeat. Drake May's name was invoked. I think if Carolina goes 10-2 and wins the ACC, I think he has at very least he'll be there in New York. And I've been doing a lot of work on Drake May. I'm about to write a piece for Team MBS Media about his chance to maybe be the first player taken in the next draft. He's a special talent. Obviously, his father, Mark May, was a Carolina quarterback that I scouted also. The kid's got size, about 6'3", 5/8 of an inch, about 223 pounds. The thing that's going to surprise people is how well he runs. I think he might run low 4.6s or high 4.5s, and he's going to throw the ball when he gets to the combine. It's going to make people go, ooh. He's got rare arm talent. So, yeah, he's got a really good chance. And then I'll throw in some players that people might not be expecting. Watch out for if Ole Miss, even if they end up going 9-3 or 10-2, and say they finish number 2 in the West, maybe in the SEC. Watch out for their sophomore, Quinshon Judkins, who I thought he was the most impressive freshman running back in the country last year. Truly impressive. He had 1,567 yards rushing as a freshman, and then 132 receiving yards on top of that. He was super special and was in, and wasn't even like getting a large number of the snaps early on in the season. He sort of began to get, more and more play as the year went on. When he's going to be the guy from start to finish, if Ole Miss is good, especially if they're very good this year, I think he has a very good chance to be there. And it's hard to win if you're not a quarterback. I'll give you one other non-quarterback who I think will at least be there at the ceremony, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. It's not really a shocker to anybody. If he has an enormous season, if he's has 1,488 yards receiving and 14 receiving touchdowns and just flat out taking over games, which he's capable of doing, especially in big games, right? So if you want to know the actual formula to winning the Heisman, here's how it works. You need to have a good amount of hype, but not be the guy from the previous year. But you should be in the top 5 or 6, because if you're too far out, it's too hard to get there. And you need to have a win, preferably either in the Central or Eastern time zone, but a night game that everyone is watching, a big game. And you need to take that game over, be the best player on the field. Do that and then show up, right? At least one other big game and be the best player on the field where everyone is watching and be on a good team. If you can be on a really good team, have 2 dominant performances in Eastern or Central time zone night games that everyone's watching, that's your formula. And Marvin Harrison's in the right part of the country. So shout out to Caleb Williams on the West Coast. That's really hard to do. But shout out to him for doing that. But it's much easier if you're an East Coast or Central player, because frankly, a lot of these sports writers like to go to bed around 10 o'clock. So, they may not see you play if you're playing in the wrong time zone. But yeah, those are the guys I think have a good chance to be there. And there'll probably be somebody we're not even talking about who'll fight his way there too.
Well, our last question here for the college football section. Dave, what makes a blue blood program?
A blue blood program. Well,
you hear the term, Notre Dame, Texas, USC. What when you hear that term, what makes you think that this particular program is a blue blood?
Well, I think, for me, it's a matter of legacy and longevity. And then, royal families, blue blood, right? Now, sometimes you have blue bloods that they don't have any money. But
10 years ago, did you consider the University of Georgia a blue blood?
No. And today I wouldn't. Like a blue blood is something that goes way back. Now Georgia they're about to do something that's never been done. If they win a 3rd national championship in a row, that's simply been never done. But I would consider Alabama to be a blue blood franchise. Bear Bryant, going all the way back. But Georgia had some great teams, and what was it? Vince Dooley, wasn't he coach?
Yeah, Vince Dooley.
Georgia back in the day. So maybe they might be up there. It's royal families can be very big. The Saudi Arabian royal family, 10 or 20,000 people in the royal family. But, now you take a program. What would be a good example? I mean, the SEC has been dominating so much, and a lot of those programs have been around for a long time. But you take like an Oregon or something. Now they went to the Rose Bowl, back in the 20s and stuff like that, but they weren't necessarily considered one of the great programs. Now they've put together some great teams. So for me, it's the whole legacy, and over decades of times. You mentioned Notre Dame. Now, when's the last time Notre Dame has been in the discussion for a national championship? But I would put them as a blue blood program that kind of lost their wealth.
Reggie, what's your thoughts on that? How does a blue blood become a blue blood? How does a program become a blue blood program like Georgia, or what's your thoughts on that?
Piggybacking off what Dave just said, I think that it has to do with legacy, and he named one of the teams that's a blue blood of the blue blood teams in Notre Dame. Notre Dame was a blue blood team. Like they, some of those teams too can stay around and they become divorced from winning. They just legacy at a certain point. But I do believe that winning is what starts it. So first of all, you got to start with winning. Can't even begin the process of becoming a blue blood team if you're not winning games. But just winning in of itself is not going to do it, because the legacy part is going to have to factor in. You're going to have to win, and you got to win for some years. And I do believe that when you look at some of the other teams that have that kind of moniker of being a blue blood team, they had portions of history where they dominated at different times in history. So Notre Dame dominated at one point. And I feel like not to be a homer here with Alabama, but of course, because going back to Bear Bryant days as well, like legendary coaches kind of helped that out for a while. If you had a legendary coach, if you were the center of the college football universe for at least 5 to 10 years or so at any given point in time, and you have a winning record to go along with that, players that you've sent to the NFL, there's several different things I think factor in. That's why I don't know if it's an easy process for any team to just become one overnight. You're not just going to be able to become one. That's the kind of thing that chooses you versus you choosing to become it. You end up either being a blue blood team or you don't. And I think it takes time to build something like that.
Demetrius.
All right, let me go put on some black socks and stand on the porch and yell at a bunch of little kids, because I hate this concept. Both of the guys are right, but I hate it. I don't even believe in this concept because I think there's a school that I hate that believes themselves to be a blue blood, and we don't talk about them. So I ain't saying their name, right?
I tried not to say it for you there, Demetrius.
I saw your eyes too.
I was gonna say it.
I was like, I
want you to be welcome back. I'm not gonna do that.
It's my first time back. Okay, to me, there's only one blue blood program, and this is my standard. This is Black Sox. Kid, get your ass off my lawn right now. Alabama's the only blue blood program in the nation right now. Period. Because my number one thing is eras of dominance. Right. That's the number one thing. I don't probably go back far enough. That school on the other part of the state, I will never say they're anything. Notre Dame hasn't been consistently relevant 3, 4, 5 years of competitive championship level greatness since the 60s. Hell, we won a championship in 1966. So is Michigan State a blue blood? Hell no. I know that. To me, there's one blue blood program, and it's Alabama. Then there's a second tier of once blue bloods and possibly blue bloods again one day. I'm not sucking up to Don Hayes. Texas is in that group. Texas is a school that, wow, for years we're dominant. I think Notre Dame can claim to be in that second group. I think Miami could claim to be in a group like that, right? So there are schools that could say they're in there. I will never give that. Ohio State is on the cusp. they've been dominant in the conference better part of 20 years, right? They're close to being a blue blood by my definition. Georgia's right there. We all, let's have this conversation in 8 months. Might be moot. Georgia might just kick the door down. To me, there's only one true blue blood program. That's Alabama. Everybody else is playing for second place. And if you want to argue who's in there, great. There's only one team I'll never give that kind of credit to. But I will say Georgia deserves it. Texas, certainly. Notre Dame. Penn State at one time. I don't know about them, though. But so there's, as it's defined, the guys are right. But there's a brand thing that goes with it. And I hate that idea. The brand. You're not winning. I don't give a damn about your brand. You're not winning games. What good is your brand? So I think it's Alabama, and then I think Georgia, Texas, Clemson. I didn't mention Clemson might, deserve to be in the conversation if they bounce back. But I don't really believe in the blue blood concept, except for Alabama, because it's too different. Bear Bryant and Nick Saban might be two of the top 5 coaches of all time. So yeah, it's tough. But I'm an old man. Get off my grass on this one. I hate that concept.
Oh, well.
Don is one blue blood that was rejected, but it seemed that you were embraced here. Is Demetrius right?
Well,
it's Alabama, Texas, and my Ohio State doesn't count. And go ahead.
Well, I'm a history major, so I'll go through history. History tells us that the blue bloods are Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma.
Don't do it.
Michigan.
Don't
Oh, there it is.
Texas,
I wanted to say
USC.
it so bad. I knew it. I wanted to say it.
Yeah, Texas, USC. And I throw like maybe Penn State in there. Sure, Notre Dame. But here's what they all have in common. When you hear a fight song, you know which school that belongs to. Now, I hear Boomer Sooner all the time because we have to play those assholes every year. But like, I can hum the the Notre Dame tune. I can do
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Just for you, I'm not going to do it. But that's the other thing they have in common is that when they have a bowl game, they travel. The fans travel. They show up. The other thing they have in common is that they never change the uniform. A lot of schools have these gimmicks, like Oregon, Oklahoma State. Let's change the uniform. Let's wear all black, whatever. Texas has their burnt orange home. They have their icy whites for away games. Alabama has had the same uniform ever since I can remember.
Don't do it. Don't do
Ohio State, they had the iconic helmets like Michigan. I mean, so yeah. So I'm talking iconic uniforms, fan following, winning tradition, legendary coaches. So I think that's what makes a blue blood. It's not just one. I mean, right now you could say, well, it's a Game of Thrones between Alabama and Georgia kind of knocking out. But in all reality, any of those teams will probably come back resurgent in our lifetime. So that's my 2 cents.
Bill, I know you got a nickel somewhere.
Yeah. So the formula, in case you want to know the actual mathematical formula, is right height times history plus winning over money. So if you have, there you go. That's the formula, mathematical formula. So yeah, exactly. That's the one. That's the mathematical formula. If you want to
In case you didn't know, David, that's where we're doing all the nonsense. Go ahead. Sorry, Bill. I love the formula, Bill.
So there are 2 teams that have had 500 players or more, more than 500 players, and Ohio State's close to joining this number, but 2 have had 500 players drafted into the NFL. Number 1, Notre Dame, number 2, USC. Both are over 500 players drafted. And then just after that, just short of 500 is Ohio State. So Alabama has certainly been great and been great for a long time, but they haven't been as consistent, frankly, as some other programs in terms of churning out NFL-level players. Oklahoma is right there at number 4. Michigan, I hate to say it, but okay, that's team up north, whatever, pick a tune, how to put it, is right there. And then you have, the Tide are tied, right? Or actually, no, they pulled ahead. They pulled ahead of Michigan. So they're now ahead of Michigan, the school. They're now ahead of them, right? After the last draft, they pulled ahead of them. So those are the top 5 in terms of player drafted, and then next you have Penn State in the NFL history. So when a program is consistently great for a very long time and has hype, right? Because you can be a great program and for a reason not get the hype you deserve, right? LSU they've been great for a long time, but they don't get the hype for the most part. They've had a couple of national championships. They're rarely talked about as one of the great programs of all time, but they've been great for a long time. They were great under, Coach Dietzel. They helped to create the modern special teams, was created with his quote unquote Chinese bandits. And, he figured out ways to get around the whole mass substitution rule before you were allowed to have 2-platoon football. So, and it's known as one of the toughest places to play, particularly at night, forever. People have said, in the 1950s, people were talking about how hard it is to win down there at night, but they don't get the hype. So even though they've been so great for so long, and they've produced almost 390 NFL draft picks, right? So they're, in the top 10, but they aren't talked about the same way. Florida has been great for a long, long time. They don't get talked about the same way. Georgia actually has produced, even with the ridiculous bounty of talent, has actually produced a few fewer NFL draft picks than Florida. But you wouldn't think that to be true because of and then Nebraska's right behind Georgia. And they were once unquestionably a blue blood, right? I mean, all the success that Coach Devaney had, and then it's like, what are we going to do when Devaney retires? This young kid, Tom Osborne, isn't ready for the big time, right? I mean, you have to be really old to remember that, but that was the concern when Coach Devaney stepped down, that, well, what are we going to do with this kid, Osborne? Well, he did all right, as it turns out. Now they've wandered around very lost in the post-Osborne era. I mean, it's funny because Bo Pelini should put up those signs by the highway that say, miss me yet? We're going 9-3. Doesn't look so bad now, does it? But those are, like, to me, the Blue Bloods are the ones that are consistently great. They have hype, history, right? Plus winning over money. If you've got a big money program, a cash cow program that just craps out millions of dollars worth of licensing stuff, and someone mentioned the fans travel and they buy everything in sight, all that stuff. And you've got a huge athletic endowment. I mean, huge, like, the GDP of Burundi type athletic endowment. With the hype, the history, plus winning over money. That's how you calculate who's a blue blood.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, guys, it's 99 days to kick off here. Reggie, why don't you evaluate the hiring of Mr. Nielsen and Jerry Gray due to the retirement of Coach Pease? What you thought about your 75th pick, of course, from Ohio State, Zach Harrison. And I'm looking at your schedule and the teams in your division. Reggie, what's your chances of winning the division? Baker Mayfield hasn't done anything to impress me so far.
Yeah, me neither. Not really super concerned with Baker in Tampa Bay. I'm interested to see because I'm a homer, but I'm a realistic homer. I'm interested. I have to see with some of these teams. Like, I got to see what Derek Carr looks like in New Orleans. I have to see what Bryce Young looks like in Carolina before I can really say that that I feel like we'll take the division. I don't really have any conviction about that. I do like the things that we've done in the offseason, but I have seen this before, guys. I got to get to week 1 and see who's actually on the field. Like, it's hard for me to get this excited this far out because your freak injury during preseason, during training camp, stuff like that, and the teams look very different in August and they look in April, May, and June. So it's kind of like I'm just gonna have to see. I like our chances better this year than I liked last year when Tom was around. I like our chances.
You upgraded at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good about it, but it's kind of like we have a lot of new pieces. I got to see how these pieces gel. You know, football is such a team sport. Like, I got to see how these pieces gel. Coach P's retiring. Okay, I mean, I wasn't a huge Coach P's fan, but I wasn't not a fan. I'm kind of like Mel on that. I'm like right in the middle on that, to be honest with you. But with the rest of these, I just have to see it on the field, guys. I got to see it. I have to see how this all comes together. Right now, we have a lot of good things happening on paper here in Atlanta. We've had a pretty good off season as far as us addressing the side of the ball that we down here really felt needed to be addressed. But eventually, these guys are going to have to play football, and I'm going to have these guys actually come out and figure it out before I'm really before I can really say where we will be in the division. I feel like it'll be competitive. There's two teams with Carolina and New Orleans where I'm looking at. New Orleans has always played us hard. New Orleans has always been a good team, good ran organization. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And the only team I can say I absolutely do not trust is Tampa Bay. Like I can't trust Baker. I just can't. I cannot do that. So that's the only team that I'm going to have out. But I think the other two teams, Carolina on paper, can turn it around. Like, you never know. If Bryce comes out firing, they're going to be a good team. So I like our chances, though. I like our chances at taking the division better than I liked it last year.
Okay. Come on, Demetrius. Talk about that draft. I see. I see it in your face. Come on.
Well, you know that Brad Holmes is a ninja. We all know that. He's the best GM in football. If you didn't know, now you know. So the draft is just a part of it, right? The thing is, this is a team that finished 8-2 in their last 10 at the end of last year, and nobody wanted us to make the playoffs because we had a lot of organic growth in young players. Get to know the name James Houston. You're going to need to know that guy. Get to know Kirby, right? Get to know Kirby Joseph. You should know who Kirby Joseph is. You're going to need to know these names, right? And so then they went out in free agency and redid their whole secondary.
Kirby Joseph scared Aaron Rodgers all into the AFC.
Exactly. They went and took Cam Sutton from you guys. We got C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles. And quietly, a kid named Emmanuel Mosley, who was injured for the 49ers, is going to be big. We revamped our whole secondary. Then we went and got Jack Campbell in the draft. To make our linebacking core better, we're bringing back a guy named Josh Pascal. I raved about him last year at the draft because somebody on this call told me that was a good pick by them right after the draft. He was hurt, but when he came back, he played well. So they had a great free agency period. So they went into this draft unlike any Lion draft I remember, meaning we didn't have a screaming need. We didn't have to draft to fill a hole because after free agency, we didn't have any holes. We were the best team in the North after free agency. We could have took the field in March and won the North. So they said, you know what? We're going to trade back out of 6, pick up some extra compensation, and they got to 12, and they said the best player on the board is Jahmyr Gibbs. That's Alvin Kamara. They look at Jahmyr Gibbs, and they see Alvin Kamara. Like not fighting in a bar, but Alvin Kamara on the football field. I'm sorry, that was dirty. My bad. I'm going to retract that. That was not.
No, he was doing it. So I mean,
right. They look at Jahmyr Gibbs and they see Alvin Kamara, and so they say, "Wow, that guy is just a football player." The word Brad Holmes used was a weapon. So my breakout guy is Josh Pascal. I think that with James Houston, with Charles Harris coming back, Romeo Okwara's coming back, we're gonna get after quarterbacks because Aiden can rush, Houston can run. And now we have this opportunistic defense of backfield that's Kirby Joseph is an interception waiting to happen. So I'm obviously thrilled with what they did. Hendon Hooker is a luxury. I hope he gets healthy. I hope he's everything we think he is. But the reality, our future is a guy named Jared Goff because he's only 28. And we're going to extend his ass at the end of the year. People were slept on him. He had a great year last year. He was top 7, top 8 in the league in every meaningful category. I am on the Jared Goff bandwagon. I think in a year from now, we're going to hand him 4 years, $180 million. And Hendon Hooker, no, that's what the going rate's going to be. That's just what the number's going to be, right? We're going to have to exceed the nonsense Daniel Jones got because he's better than Daniel Jones. And that's how that whole process works, right? So he's going to get because I think he's going to lead us 12 wins. We're going to win the division. And how we're going to sit down and say, okay, you threw for 4,400 yards and 30 touchdowns and 8 picks. How do we got to hand them 180 million. And I'll be out front going, good job, Brad Holmes. Lock him down, because people act like Goff's 35. He's not. He's 28. He's playing his best football. The last half of the previous year and all of last year was the best football of his career. Jamison Williams is going to come back after 6 games, which is weird. That's a weird story. How the hell did he not know he couldn't place bets? But whatever. I like where we are. Gibbs brings a weapon. We drafted a kid named Laporta out of Iowa, who's going to give us a next level tight end. Jamison comes back. I like where we're set up. The North goes through Allen Park, Michigan, as far as I'm concerned. So and Jared Goff's a big reason why. So buy stock in Goff right now, because it's low and he's about to blow up.
Okay, well, not sure about that Jared Goff, but
hold on. What are you not sure about Jared Goff?
I don't see the consistency. I know.
Oh.
You know, I mean,
I can give you his numbers if you want them, but I'm trying not to be that guy right now. I need you to go back and look at his last 20 games. I'll say that.
Well, you know, I mean, I did have two Lions on my fantasy football.
No, we're talking fantasy football right now. We talking about practice. We talking about practice. That's what we're talking about. Practice.
Well,
Okay.
That's a plug for our league that will be drafted within the next sometime at the end of July.
Love it. I'm drafting Goff, by the way, so don't worry about it. He won't be there for you. He won't be there for you.
Dave, I've wanted to ask this question because I was not a Big Ben fan about 2 years before he left. And
no, you were not.
When he actually told Kenny Pickett that he was afraid of his success, or that he didn't want him to succeed, and maybe I'm wrong on this, when he first came to the Steelers. And I thought these are some of the things that may have had an impact on Mason Rudolph and his development, because I don't know if Ben was ever, I mean, to me, he was more that Brett Favre type, like, you're coming here to take my job rather than for me to make you my successor. So I might be wrong on my point of view, but Dave, what was what did you think about that conversation? And do you think what did you think about Pickens setting this year's goal as making the Pro Bowl? Whereas I thought that was all right, I would have rather for him to say, I want to make the playoffs.
Yeah, well, first with Ben's comments, that was on his podcast with Kenny Pickett, talking to each other, and actually Ben knew that it was going to be controversial. He actually started out saying, "Hey, what I'm about to say is probably I'm going to be blasted for it," I think he said. But he was really talking about his own ego. He was saying, "Hey, Kenny, when you first started, I was afraid of you doing very well, because then it was going to be Ben who." And so he was really talking about himself. He wasn't talking about Kenny. And then Ben went on to say that as the season progressed, he was like high-fiving his partner during the games. They were cheering on. He's a big fan. And what Ben told Kenny, and he apologized for it, he said, I really didn't know what you had. I didn't know what your talent level was. I thought you were going to be an okay quarterback coming in, but I believe you're the future of this franchise. And so when you put it into that context, I think Ben was just being perfectly honest. Yeah, his ego was threatened, and he was being honest about it, and I respect that. So not everybody took it that way, and some people took the comments out of context. But when you put it into context, it made sense. With his relationship with Mason Rudolph, Mason Rudolph signed back with the Steelers, and they've made it clear you're going to be the number 3 quarterback, which I was a little surprised at. But Mason Rudolph said that he and Ben were never friends, friendly. There was always something there. I don't know if it was friction or just they just didn't gel. But like Ben's relationship with Charlie Batch, they were great friends. And Ben, when he would come off the field, the first person he would go to would be Charlie Batch.
But he knew
of course, Charlie Batch wasn't threatening his position.
Right.
So, but honestly, I don't think Mason Rudolph was threatening his position either. I mean, he was a 3rd-round draft choice. I'm just not sure what happened there. And Mason says, hey, it's no big deal. We're just not friends. I would love to see Mason Rudolph on Ben's podcast. I think that would be interesting. To George Pickens' comments about wanting to make the Pro Bowl, Mike Tomlin is a fan of saying that, hey, I would rather have players that I have to say woe to than move out. But what makes me a little bit cautious, there's the dark cloud of AB. And for a long time when AB was with the Steelers, they were creating these like fake statistics. 5 receptions and 50 yards, and then they're feeding him the ball. And then they would say, oh, well, he's set the most number of consecutive games of 5 receptions in games of 50 yards together. And it's like, well, what does that mean? That's a nonsense thing. And so, my only worry would be, will George Pickens remain pure to the game, just the way AB was? AB was one of the hardest working players I've ever seen. I would go to training camp. He'd be the first guy out and the last guy in. So aside from AB's other qualities, hard work was not something that you could ding him with. And with George Pickens, I would like him to have all the assets of AB without the, hey, I need to have the ball, the individual aspect. Because in order for Pittsburgh to be relevant again, they're going to have to spread the ball around.
Yeah. Don, Popejoy, as you know, is a guy that always writes about the Steelers. Now, he points out 3 remaining roster spots that we need. Backup offensive tackle, number 3 running back, and he talks about the possibility of acquiring Quan Alexander as a reserve inside linebacker. Have you heard about any of these updates other than the young wide receiver that we signed?
Yeah, were you talking to me or to Don?
I was talking to you, Dave.
Okay. I don't understand with the offensive tackle because they drafted Broderick Jones. And then the question is he going to be a day 1 starter? Maybe not. He might have to have some work. Dan Moore has been he's buffed up quite a bit, and he's willing to swing back and forth between right tackle and left tackle. And he's made it clear, hey, whatever we need to do to win. Broderick Jones has said the same thing in his interviews. Whatever we need to do to win, I'll do. He played left tackle during most of his college time, but he did say that, hey, he practiced every day at right tackle. So it won't be as if that would be new. And then you have Chuk Shakur for it. So I think for the offensive tackle, I think that they got out of those three, they got their two starters, and then one of them will be the swing tackle. For the running back, now that's an interesting question because the Steelers just released Master T in the past week. He was out of Ohio State. A lot of people thought that he had a shot at being the number 3 running back. Now you're down to McFarland, Anthony McFarland. Is it Justin Huntley or Jason Huntley? And then they signed a third running back, and his name is escaping me right now. I don't think that those three are going to be the number 3 running back for the Steelers. And the reason is the special teams. Last year's training camp, they tried Anthony McFarland as a returner. They tried him as a gunner. That they put him into several different special team scenarios to see if he could play special teams. Well, I guess the decision was no, because Benny Snell got the nod over him as the number 3 running back. So Benny Snell remains a free agent. There's a possibility that the Steelers bring him back. They only have one opening now. They made a couple other transactions where right now the Steelers have 89 on the roster. But I think it's going to be a running back that's not currently on their 90-man roster. And then for the inside linebacker, Alexander did come in for a visit. I think it was around May 15th or May 16th, but he left without signing a contract. But he's still a free agent. So inside linebacker, I think, is an issue for the Steelers. You know, they wiped out the room from last year. Devin Bush is gone. Miles Jack is a free agent. Robert Spillane is gone. They brought in Landon Roberts, but he's more of a, I think, from what I understand, a north-south linebacker, a thumper. And they have Cole Holcomb. And then they have a young Mark Robinson, who is a running back that converted to linebacker that they really like. So that's it at inside linebacker. You know, they have a couple other guys, but they're more special team, like Tanner Music, more special teams kind of guys. So definitely they need to plug a hole at inside linebacker. And I don't think that they have an answer yet.
Okay. Don, which team goes further in their respective divisions? The Chargers or the Cowboys?
Well, my heart says Cowboys. My brain says Chargers. And the brain overrules the heart. So I think the Chargers, you know, with Herbert at quarterback, they have a pretty good little offense going on. They're scrappy. And I just think that they'll go a little bit further than the Cowboys. Cowboys had their 2 good years there in the NFC East, but now Philadelphia is kind of nudging them out. You know, I don't think they'll go much further. Maybe one playoff game, but I think the Chargers are on the upswing, and I don't think the Cowboys are really on the down. But I think they're static. They're not moving up. They're not moving down. They're just kind of remaining the same. So I have to give the edge to the Chargers on that one.
Okay, Don, the Ratbirds or the Jets?
Ooh. I'd have to go with the Baltimore on that one, but not. I'm not. I mean, if I were in Vegas, I wouldn't be betting the house. I'd be throwing small money out there. But
you gonna bet Rangers house?
Yeah. So I'd have to go with the Ravens on this.
Reggie, what'd you think?
Oh, which one of those questions? The first one.
The Radbirds or the Jets?
I'm gonna get out of here after this question. I'm kind of there with Don here. It's hard because when you got a player of Aaron Rodgers' caliber going to a different team, guys, we just gotta see what happens there. Like you assume that because he has a certain pedigree, and the Jets do seem like they were just a quarterback short from being a little more relevant than what they were, that he can go in there and get the job done. But you still got to go in there and do it, and guys, I'm not really sold on the Odell situation, like with Baltimore either, because this is a guy who hasn't played in a full year. So I'm not super sold on that, but I will go with Baltimore just for continuity purposes. If I'm looking at teams, guys, I like the Jets as a team better. Just in general, just comprised as a team, I like the Jets better. But I just don't know how Aaron Rodgers is going to fit in. At least he's actually throwing to some of these kids now early. Aaron Rodgers didn't really throw into the kids at all in the offseason. So at least he's there getting some reps with some of those younger receivers. So I'm going to go. Yes, I'm going to go with the Ravens, but I'm not convinced with that. Like Don said, I'm not. I have almost zero conviction on that. It can go either one of those teams as easy as the other one.
Give us your final thoughts. No, you got to answer the second part. The Chargers or the Cowboys?
Man, the Cowboys seem to be allergic to success. Like the Cowboys, if they when they're front running, they can't handle it. They can't handle it. They can't handle all that success. They'll eke out double-digit wins. They're going to look great at certain points of the season. You're going to think they're getting over the hump, and they're going to do the Cowboys things they always do, which is collapse at some point. You're just kind of waiting for the collapse to happen. So I'm going to go with the Chargers there because I just like the Chargers team-wide. I like the Chargers a little better than the Cowboys. And the Eagles too. The Eagles being in that division, I think really hurts them because they're really taking a step. Final thoughts are, and we didn't get to this question, but I definitely will touch on it real quick. The Jimmy G foot clause, like the Jimmy G should have a body clause. There should be a body clause for Jimmy G. I'm not sure why they just single out his foot. Maybe that's because his foot is the thing of late that they're singling out here. But here's the hope in that for us that are going to watch finals. We get the good finals. I'm pretty sure we'll discuss it more as time goes on. Maybe we get some good, watch some good basketball. And I appreciate being on with you guys as usual. It's always fun.
Take care, Reggie.
All right. See you later, guys.
Yeah. Bill.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about this Jimmy G contract. I've never heard of anything like this. Now, not only is there a possibility that he might not play for the Raiders, but he might not get paid.
Right, correct. So you do see clauses like this very occasionally. Sometimes it's a clause that deals with a player who's had, say, substance abuse issues. And there's a clause in there that says, if you fail a drug test, boom, no money. Sometimes it's a player who is coming back from an injury where they're not sure this player can come back. And so, if you're not able to play X number of games, or if you don't pass the physical or whatever, it doesn't happen often, but there have been a few examples of it. As mentioned previously, I've seen him since he was in high school. Watched him play both linebacker and later quarterback when he was in high school. My friend Jay Rue was a assistant coach of a rival team, so I got to see him a few times. He's one of the guys that nothing really stood out about him at first. His junior year of high school, I remember seeing him thinking nothing special. He got better. When I saw him his senior year, they'd stopped letting him play defense, first of all. So he was not playing both ways anymore. He greatly improved as a quarterback, but not so much so that he was getting big-time offers. So he ends up joining the tradition of quarterbacks at Eastern Illinois, along with people like, Mike Shanahan and Sean Payton, Tony Romo, to name a few, and, breaks a bunch of records while he's at Eastern Illinois. But still, there are certain things you just thought, okay, he'll be an NFL backup. He'll hang around. When he was an NFL backup, I thought, yeah, see, he did it, I never thought he would be a long-term starter, to be perfectly honest. So he's already kind of living on borrowed time. But he has turned out to have fragile feet. And though we kind of laugh at that the way it sounds, a lot of careers have ended due to, especially Liz Frank injuries. I mean, it's not a guaranteed thing you come back from. It's not guaranteed. Even with all the medical science we have to work with, it's always a little trickiness.
Ask any grunt.
Right. Ask anyone who's ever had a Liz Frank, whether it be a grunt or not. But right. Obviously, if you're on a walk, jump, run business, if that's what you do with your feet, and you've had a Liz Frank, yeah, you're always a little bit nervous. Because you never know when it might go again. It's a low blood flow bone, and I don't know how medical we want to get, but the bones that heal and you feel pretty good about them are ones with a lot of blood flow, right? You feel pretty good about those. The farther you get away from those high blood flow bones and into the lower and lower blood flow bones, the more it's like, not so sure about this. So it made sense for the team to do this, quite frankly. And they're going to need to figure out their plan. Well, I guess their plan B is Aiden O'Connell. I guess they figured out their plan B. The plan B is Aiden O'Connell. So if you watch a lot of Purdue football as I have, you have a pretty good idea of what he is. When I wrote up Aiden O'Connell, he's essentially a poor man's Nick Foles. He has a chance to sort of eventually develop into a Nick Foles type quarterback, which means some high highs and some low lows if you have to trot Aiden O'Connell out there. But I think they're going to probably still try to make it work with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's my guess.
Don, there's a team, another team in Texas. They're the Texans. What do you think? Will the Texans win 3 more games than anyone thinks, finishing 3-14?
Texas, they've been so terrible for so long. I don't see them winning maybe 5 games, maybe 5. I just they're breaking into some new guys. I just don't see them having a lot of success this year. But they can shock me. But I don't. 5 or 6 games is, I think, their max.
Dave, who wins more games, Colorado or the Texans?
That's a great question. Well, I have Colorado at 4. It might be a push. 4-4.
Bill, who wins more games, the Texans or Colorado or Deion?
Oof. Well, just because they have more chances because they play more games, I'll just go Texas because they have more games to play. I think they will at least get 1 game more than Colorado.
Bill, your final thoughts for the evening.
I will deviate from sports for this particular one. On this day in 1921, in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, also known as Black Wall Street, there was a unsubstantiated report that a black man named Dick Rowland had attempted to rape a white woman named Sarah Page, which was later proven to be 100% untrue. But that unsubstantiated report was enough to set off an absolute orgy of violence, the second bloodiest massacre of black Americans by white Americans, outside of, say, warfare, outside of like declared war, took place that day, second only to the Elaine massacre in Arkansas. And it was also a huge transfer of wealth. I truly believe that the real underpinning of this massacre was the success of the Greenwood district, because you had black-owned banks, you had several black-owned insurance companies, you had black-owned home builders and bakers, funeral homes, schools, businesses of every sort that were thriving. And that was not the case after this. And the whole state of Oklahoma at the time had 2 airports. 6 black families in Tulsa, Oklahoma at that time owned airplanes. Think of how few people in 1921 owned airplanes. And 6 black families in the Greenwood District did. That's how successful they were. It was a sophisticated, modern, unapologetically black community that had, like I said, coffee houses, clothiers, movie theaters, luxury homes, indoor plumbing at a time when indoor plumbing was not all that common, a school system that was considered to be the envy of others in the entire state of Oklahoma at the time. And many of their less fortunate white neighbors resented the success of the Greenwood District. And so when you add together that in that period right after World War I, where literally black veterans were pulled off subway trains and pulled off of trolley cars and stagecoaches and were murdered while sometimes still in uniform because of this reaction to the quote unquote new Negro, this upsurge in pride and success in the black community. You saw this huge upsurge of racial violence from the north, right, as far north as, Idaho and the New England states, all throughout the Midwest, and of course, obviously in the Deep South. And so a man named O.W. Gurley, who was a wealthy African-American man from Arkansas, had moved there to Tulsa, bought a bunch of land, and sold to other black Americans, creating this tremendous bubble of wealth and success. And so the Greenwood District, like I said, was a gem, right? A black diamond set in the state of Oklahoma, which was wiped out in blood and fire and an orgy of violence. And they literally bombed. Like they flew a plane over and dropped 2 bombs on the Greenwood District during this orgy of violence. And you see estimates of 300. I think that the number is probably higher, and over 800 people were injured in this orgy of violence. While America has certainly come some ways since then, there's always a suspicion and always a distrust of a certain kind of black success still in this country. And so you see people write scurrilous things about the Obamas. That's the most filthy, disgusting things about these people who I know, right? Worked for Barack Hussein Obama back when he was a state senator here in Illinois. And while he's far from perfect, arrogant, and not as good a basketball player as he thinks he is, the things I've heard written about him are just hilarious to me because I know they're not true. There's still this suspicion around, successful blacks in this country that is just fascinating to me because it is so hard to be successful, period, right? We've got nothing working against you. When you overcome the things that these people overcame almost 100 years, over 100 years ago in this country, in a state like Oklahoma, it really makes you understand why all it took was that to set off this wiping out of all this wealth and success, and it never recovered. I mean, the black community of Tulsa has certainly rallied, but nothing like it was, right? That kind of success, that kind of concentrated wealth is gone and will never, not say never, but it's unlikely to be recovered in my lifetime in Oklahoma. And the same kind of thing happened in many different parts of the United States. It happened in the state of Florida in a couple of different towns, including Eatonville and others. So these black towns would be sometimes wiped out to the point that they would literally submerge them, right? They're called sunken towns. There's a great book on it if you want to read it. So they would hide, the evidence of what they did by literally flooding these towns and turning them into lakes. Didn't happen in the case of Tulsa, but it has happened in several other places. So while we are rightfully proud of the progress that has been made, I think we have a tendency to not fully acknowledge the depth of craziness, the psychotic nature of racism in this country. So that is my final thought.
Very somber thoughts the day after Labor Day. The day after Labor Day. But very somber thoughts. Don, your final thoughts for the evening.
Final thoughts. Well, just to let y'all know, I do have a new side gig.
Oh.
I have become a booking manager for a local country western band.
Oh.
So I've been booking this young lady. Young, she's almost my age, but she's about 15 years younger. But anyway,
Don, are you a line dancer?
No. No. I'm retaining my man card. I'm not sure that man card go line dance. So I mean, I learned how to do the whole junior cotillion stuff with the, the foxtrot, the waltz, two-step, but I don't do line dance. But anyway, so I've been busy booking her. I'm earning, I have a little booking fee that I get paid, and hopefully, I just got her signed up to sing the national anthem at a Spurs game this season. So yeah, that's kind of a little fun thing to do this summer is go watch this band play, and
but
just for advertisement, her name is Sabrina Estevez.
Oh,
in Blue Feather Band, and her grandfather was one of the founders of the mariachi movement here in San Antonio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you want, she has 2 songs on Apple Music right now, and she's working on her album. So if you want to go show some love, you may do so. But that's my final thought.
Don't you still have some inside to the Spurs there, Don?
Well, my brother's father-in-law was the timekeeper for him for over 30 years. He just retired back in 2020 during COVID. So, he's got some bad health issues, but that was my one little contact with the Spurs. But they're very supportive of local talent, and so if you can get them to if you get them to
now,
my computer just popped on. I'm sorry. But they work with local talent. They're willing to give like school children a chance to sing the national anthem. And so I also got our book the San Antonio Missions, which is our AA Texas League affiliate. They're the farm league for the San Diego Padres.
Now, Don, I saw something on, I believe it was ESPN, the Texas High School Barbecue Championship.
Yeah, that's
on the Ocho.
There's barbecues. That's almost a sport here in Texas. So,
well, the high school barbecue championship.
Yeah. They have middle school. I mean, they do a little bit of everything. We have a school here in San Antonio that makes their own salsa and barbecue sauce. So, yeah. So what they call when the CTE courses they have where they manufacture stuff and sell it at local shops and stuff.
So are you guys competing in San Antonio for the barbecue championship?
My school is not. My school does not have a cooking team, but there's a school down the street that has one. I don't know if that's really good, but so.
All right, okay. Texas barbecue, come on, Don. Tri-tip, hey, you got to have that little bark on the,
Bark and smoke ring. That's very important.
Yeah, and make sure you put my sauce on the side. There you go.
Now taking the field, the Fighting Chipotle Peppers of Brick Bayless High.
So, guys, in the chat box, I put a little YouTube video if y'all want to watch Sabrina. It's not really video. She just sings. It's a song, but it was the #1 downloaded song for the Texas Country Music Association. So, have at it.
Okay, yeah, and as I was telling Dave, and you can take this recording afterwards and put it anywhere you want. So, yeah, you can make sure you give her a shout out and the proper recognition. Dave, give us your final thoughts, man. Good having you.
First, I want to thank Don for giving us some music for me to check out. I will definitely check out the music. And for Bill, I think it's important, although a somber remembrance, I think it's really important to remember different parts of our history, of U.S. history. There's a lot of good, but there's a lot of bad. And the Greenwood incident, what little I know about it, one is a lot of people were killed. But part of what was so evil about that was that it destroyed the ability of those folks to rebuild. It made it very difficult because they foreclosed on a lot of the properties.
Yes.
And the African American banks lost
the transfer.
They lost all of their ability. And so then what happened is a lot of the property transferred over from black to white ownership.
Correct.
And I think that those things, although I'm a very proud American, but you cannot close your eyes to the bad things that have happened. And I appreciate Bill for bringing it up. And we should remember that. For my final thought, good music.
Sorry about that.
My final thought.
I clicked on the link.
We're just a couple days after Memorial Day, and I hope all of you had a chance to celebrate Memorial Day with family and friends. I know that a couple of you served. Special respect for the people that served, but memories for those that have fallen, so that we can enjoy sports, so that we can move forward as a society. Because I believe the U.S., the Constitution, it's an aspirational document. It doesn't mean that we're equal. I travel all over the world, and I teach classes on behalf of the U.S. government as a contractor. And one of the things, sometimes social issues come up. And what I explain is, hey, we're far from perfect. We're not lecturing you on how to be. We have our own problems, but we have what we aspire to. And this is what we're working toward. And that's a place where everybody has an equal opportunity to pursue their life and happiness. So, my final thought is a special thought for the people that have died or have served us, and we can continue this aspirational journey that we have. But then also there's a reciprocation. I was, as a civilian, I was in Iraq for 2 years. And for the military guys, it was especially tough. They would be there either for a 6-month or 1-year assignment. A lot of them very young, very difficult sometimes to communicate back at home. And one of the big morale things is when they would get sports, Super Bowl. And they would let the troops watch, and that was huge for morale. So I think while the military has given sports a great deal, sports gives a little bit back. And so my final thought is that everything we should always be thinking about, how can we reciprocate? How can we make things better? So that's just my little. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah. The one thing I can say, Dave, when you're a grunt, you appreciate baseball. It doesn't matter. All you want to see is something from the Armed Forces Network. That's all that matters. You want to see something from home. It's, appreciate your words. I always think about my fallen brothers at this time, and I think a lot of people forget what this day really means. So I won't get up on my soapbox, but remember, while you're out there enjoying your barbecue and your family, someone paid the ultimate price for you to have that right. So with that, have a good day, gentlemen. I look forward to talking to everyone next week.
See you
All right.
in 1 week, gentlemen.
Take care.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.